by 15 feet, I forgot what it was.
Yeah, it used to be.
No, it used to be nothing big, but I still remember going down there and sitting at the table across the program, an old shipwreck.
I wrote this shot down.
But the guys have travel at 3.
I don't like tight spaces. Yeah. I got a little bit closer there.
That's not bad.
Good evening, everyone.
Especially when you're hooked up to air.
Good evening,
That's kind
Dave.
of the way we do it too.
All right, please join me. I'd like to open this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody's cell phone?
Not me. Not too necessary.
All right, I'll try it again. All right, I need a motion to approve. No, it's mine. Can I switch it? No, it might not be mine.
It's your electric personality.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, absolutely. My phone is, no, it's away.
Is everybody
weird.
on?
I'm on.
Is it because it's right by the electric?
That's what it is.
Probably like a-
She literally threw it up.
That didn't help.
Let me try. We do know this is
We were
Scott
Kevin's
ran in the back,
project
so
for
maybe
new
he fixed
mics.
All right, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Project for new mics.
What do we think it is?
Capital project.
9 for 12, I have 3.
I have 11.
12 is right here.
Duncan?
Yeah, I think the
I'm
battery's
off.
Oh, battery.
You're
No,
not
it's
Oh,
off.
you just turned it off.
I turned it on now.
One very good.
Shut up. Smart guy.
When they have dead batteries, it doesn't
I
matter.
don't know if
It's
that's
still-
what it is, the battery's still low.
You want to pass me the J's?
All right, thank you for that entertainment. That was interesting. All right, so I need a motion to approve the agenda for the business meeting of today, November 14th, 2022.
Eric? Jim, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're going to turn over to the presentations, and I'd like to welcome Denise Wickham, Director of HPE and Athletics, who's going to provide us with an update. HPE.
You never get to go first, except.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I just wanted to go over a fall recap for the fall season. I did give you guys both a couple documents. One is the demographic data, which basically is talking about how many kids we had involved in the programs this fall. And then I'll go over some accolades for some of our teams. We had 55 home events this year, or this fall, and 8 events were uncovered. That means I did not have staff for those. So I was it. And transportation, we had 99 trips this fall. 8 of them were combined, which meant we had two or more teams going on one bus. And one of the trips did not have a driver. Varsity level athletes, we had 98 athletes, and you can see the breakdown of 7th through 12th graders that were involved in those varsity sports. In junior varsity, we had 25. That number is a little low just because we didn't have JV girls soccer this fall. And modified, we had 54 athletes. And I kind of broke those down, male and female. So overall, we had 177 athletes. This is our biggest season that participated in the athletic program this fall. And we had no dual athletes. That means they did not participate in more than one sport. And we had 5 students who went through the athletic placement process. I was going to ask you guys, is there other information that you would find helpful when I do a season recap? So if that's something you guys want to think about as a board, I can include other things if you would like me to, okay? So as far as our teams go, again, we had a wonderful fall. Cross country, our varsity boys team were Patroon Conference champions, and they also won the Greene County Championship, or Cup, we call it, race. That's a race that they have in cross country that is just for Greene County teams. So they do it every season, and it's a cup. You get a little plate on there if you win it. Finn Kosich was the Patroon Conference MVP. He's qualified for state qualifiers, and he finished 40th out of 131 runners this past Saturday. So we're really proud of him for that. First team, Patroon Conference, Sam Van Auken, Thomas Bauman, Nicholas Barnes, Caleb Pettit, and they were all Patroon Conference All-Stars, or all-conference. And our boys finished third at sectionals in Class C. So again, very good season for the boys. Girls cross country. We finished third in the Patroon Conference, and we're second in the Greene County Cup. And our all-conference selections for this year were Emily Smith, Evelyn Corcoran, Jillian Aloisi, Anna Steyer. So nice job in cross country. Golf. So that was an exciting golf season. Second in the Patroon Conference. We're going to get that to Conic Hills. They've gotten us the last couple of years. First place in the medalist tournament, so they have a tournament at the end of the, I guess, the season of the league play, and it's their medalist tournament. This year they separated that into two different flights, and we had Ryan Arp, who finished first in the first place in the flight A, and then flight B, Eddie Ross finished first place, so we're excited. Ella Cotter qualified for girls golf sectionals. She placed 19th out of 42 girls. And Ryan Arp was the Patroon Conference MVP for golf, and he also was a state qualifier. Boys soccer. Boys soccer, we finished third in the conference. Benjamin Reinhardt was the Patroon Conference MVP. He's a co-MVP. There was another one with him. All-conference first team, Joe Davis. All-conference second team, Caleb Mata. And they advanced to the quarterfinals of sectionals. Girls soccer. Girls soccer was undefeated again for the fourth year in a row. 10-0 this year, and they were ranked #1 in our league. All-conference first team, Ella Groupie, Ella Mulholland, Emerson Groupie, Carolyn Kosich. Second conference, all-conference was Jessica Lamonda, Cameron Childs, Nuala Capel, and Anna Mata. And they also advanced to the quarterfinals of sectionals. Girls tennis, very exciting. Patroon Conference champions, undefeated in league play. Bryn Fitzmaurice, she was a Patroon Conference MVP. Section 2 semifinalist, which, you know, in girls, I mean, we haven't had the program for that long, but that's the furthest we've gone. So she actually ended up 4th in singles for the section. And she also was a Patroon Conference singles champion because we have a conference tournament at the end of the season. So, Jaden Burke and Julia Motz, second place in the doubles tournament at the end of the season. And all-conference first team was Jaden Burke. And they also advanced to the Section 2 semifinals. Girls volleyball, Chloe Ross, Patroon Conference MVP. All-conference first team, Shay Lambersect. All-conference second team, Peyton Benjamin. And then we were ranked #1 in the league going into the tournament. We advanced to the Section 2 quarterfinals in girls volleyball as well. So all in all, it was a pretty exciting season. And I'm really proud of all of our coaches and all of our athletes and all the accomplishments they had this fall. Any questions? Duncan?
I got a couple. One, if you had no driver, how'd you get there?
The parents drove their kids to the game.
Okay, in other words, you couldn't recruit a driver, so the parents knew.
Yeah.
I think I was here that night. I was wondering if that was it. Okay. Second, golf. The young lady who plays on the golf team, she the only female that played on our team?
Yes.
There is no female golf per se, right?
Team? No.
Team, no.
Yes, but now they have girls golf sectionals. So by a certain point in the season, they have to declare whether they're going to go onto the, to play in the boys golf sectionals, or they can declare to play in the girls golf.
And then the final question. Because of what happened this year with JV, girls soccer, is there any thought in your mind to reach out to your counterparts, and if the same situation occurs next year, maybe field a mini group? I mean, there was 3 or 4 other schools, if I remember what you told us in the beginning of the year, that would have had a JV team.
There was only actually one school that had enough for a JV team.
Oh, there
It
was
had
only one?
13 players.
Oh, I thought you said
Yeah.
there was a couple.
We
that
had
couldn't make
10.
it.
So there were like two of us that had 10. So we were right on the cusp. Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm a
Enough
little
said.
concerned about that.
Enough
Well,
said.
no, the question still stands.
Well, the question stands,
You
except
could
that
do
we can't
mergers.
field. Huh?
We could do mergers, like you could have, like we could merge with Caro to have JV.
Well,
and 2 other schools.
If the whole
merge.
league doesn't have enough,
Right.
would you entertain, not to cut you off,
No, but that's the
would you
same point.
entertain setting up some kind of schedule for 4 teams or 3 teams? Or
Yes.
To give the kids a chance,
The
you know?
difficulty comes when you don't know until the very last second, right? So, people ask, can we do an independent schedule and that kind of stuff? Well, we could have done an independent schedule, but you have to know about it in advance to be able to go out and seek out those games with other schools and other leagues.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if you're gonna
Yeah.
is there any thought to reach out? You'd have
Yeah,
to
we're
do
gonna
it
be
now.
talking about that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Because I think a lot of the other schools don't believe that they're probably gonna have enough coming into next season.
Well, it'd be nice to give the kids a chance to grow, you know?
Yes.
Denise, can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
We're not unique in the fact, obviously across the true conference, we had issues. I know that even some of the bigger schools have had an issue with getting enough kids to participate at the JV level. Is the state looking at changing, having
Setup.
younger kids, the setup of it?
So there's conversations right now at the state level, and they're just in the preliminary stages of this, but in looking at including 6th grade into interscholastic athletics and doing kind of like a 6th and 7th as a modified level, and then doing a 8 and 9 as kind of like a JV level, and then doing 10 through 12 as a varsity level. Because across the state, they're having troubles with some participation numbers for some of the sports.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So more to come on that. I'll keep you guys tuned in.
Question about tennis. I've seen these wonderful new tennis courts.
Yeah.
My son was here and played on the rotten ones.
The 2 right out here.
What's the future for your ambition regarding tennis
As far as,
accomplishments?
so our girls have been doing great. So we've only had girls tennis for probably, I think, 3 or 4 years. Like that was one of those sports that we added on for the girls. Boys have been doing fabulous as well. So we're hoping to grow that as much as we possibly can in the future and just keep a steady program for the kids.
Does this help these wonderful new
Oh,
courts?
yeah, yeah. And that they're able to use them for physical education as well. So now they're doing racket sports with the younger grades, so then kids get kind of tuned into that and say they're excited about it. So that when they do get into our varsity program, then,
Would that include also some of the competition at Flushing Meadows for them, the boys? My son competed in the semifinals there.
oh, okay. For state levels, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, so if we qualify for it, certainly.
well, that was,
Yeah, you gotta qualify though, yeah.
this was 16 years ago.
And one of the things too that they've done recently is they've done a team sectionals now. So that's been happening for the last 2 years, and they also have individuals and doubles. So they can qualify in various different ways.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Denise, that's wonderful, appreciate the update. Now I am going to move us on to the Mentor Committee report, and Chris Carl will be presenting. Welcome, come on up, come on
Well,
down.
I do have a presentation. I don't know if it makes sense to run it back there. Everybody kind of would have to clean their neck, but,
We can try.
okay.
Everybody else does it to us, why shouldn't you, Chris?
Oh, there you go.
Get to the beginning here. You start at the beginning, right?
That's usually the way it works, Chris.
That's the best approach.
We found that works well with other presentations.
Okay. Well, then, who am I to mess with the plan? No, I have all of the tools I need to. Yeah, no. Oh, thank you. All right. Oh, microphone. Is this on? I don't know.
Is the blue light on?
The blue light is on, so,
Do I need this?
oh, there we go. Woo-hoo. Thank you.
Pretty new for me. All right, let me see. Yeah, so I was asked to present on the mentor program. And so I've been the mentor chair. This is 1 year and a quarter. Overall, the program, it's when we hire new teachers, we assign them a mentor. And the idea is that it helps them either transition from a preparation program or from a different district into here. The mentors meet weekly with the mentee, and they help with any number of things, planning, etc. And then there's a monthly program that's held by me, or whoever the mentor chair is at the time. We go over goals, professional development, and just general support. And then another thing that we do in terms of the overall program is half days, where mentors and mentees can meet, take a half a day and work on goals, curriculum, development. There's a few of them throughout the year, especially since the last couple of years. The pool has been so large, we've designated certain days when there aren't as many absences and things like that to alleviate substrain. And so they usually meet at campus and go over curriculum, things like that, but there has been times where like CTE has gone to other districts and seen what those schools are doing, and just it's a good opportunity to cross-pollinate the programs. And then it's also been referred to as a lifeline for new teachers. The goals of the program to provide support, of course, right? Coming into a new district or a new position as a teacher can be overwhelming at times. Then also a big thing that we try to do is build community, because the majority of teachers who leave within the first 3 to 5 years of teaching. And the number one reason is because they felt unsupported. So building the community and building the support network should keep the people that we've tried so hard to recruit for the long run. And then we look at who our new hires are, and then we try to provide professional development relevant to who the group is in front of us. And then we also have some ideas that always crop up year after year, so we have some of that. There are sort of 2 categories in the program. So the first category is a brand new teacher, first year, right out of a preparation program. They're required to have 40 hours of mentoring. They attend the monthly meetings that I hold, and they attend weekly meetings with their mentor. They have support in their new career, right? So moving from theory to practice is often a little trickier when the rubber meets the road. So the mentor program helps them move to that. Also developing curriculum and classroom setup, things even as simple as setting up your classroom, flow of your classroom, where do you keep your extra pencils, and then also the systems that we use. Because in preparation programs, you might have an experience where you use a student data system, but it might be different from district to district. So setting up grade books and things like that. Simple things as taking days off, how do you do that? And then back to community building, that's like one of our main goals. And then it's also a state requirement that a brand new teacher has 40 hours, so we need that. The other thing that Greenville's been able to do in the last few years, which I think is very beneficial, is we've been able to offer 20 hours for teachers who've taught for years somewhere else and then are new to our district. So when I got here, I had been mentored. I worked at a different district and I was mentored there. So I wasn't offered a mentor here. And that made the transition a little trickier. It can be isolating and things like that. So we're able to now offer these 20 hours. So they come to the monthly meetings that I hold, and then they meet as needed for 10 more hours throughout the year. And so just navigating systems, community building, and then transitioning to this new district.
Chris, how do you go about the process of matching them up?
So
Oh, did I lead into something?
you're stealing my thunder.
Okay.
No, we're about to
No,
get to
wait.
that. Yeah. So just an overview of the year, and I'll move quickly through this, but there's like an introduction to Greenville during the summer program when we have new hires. Then we talk about system setups and things like that. Two things that the program has done this year that are new, well, starting last year, is we've developed a curriculum map. If anybody wants to see it, I can put it up on the board. We've developed a curriculum map for basically mapping out how the year goes, what things we'll focus on and what meetings and things like that, materials needed. So this will be the focus of my monthly meetings and things like that, but also what mentors might want to focus on during those months as well. Another thing is a teacher reference guide. So it's sort of a quick glance of who to call in case you have whatever. So you start with your mentor, and if they answer those questions, or if you have questions about 504s, et cetera, and we give these out to the new teachers as well. So it's just sort of a reference guide that new teachers can use when they have questions. Sometimes you don't know what to ask, and then other times you don't know where to go to ask whoever. So that's something that I'm proud of, that work that we did this last year. So the mentor committee, and we'll get to now matching people up. So the mentor committee is made up of, so the mentor program is really what I was just discussing, and that's sort of the heart of it. And then I guess the brain of it, if you want to go with that, the analogy still is the committee. And the committee is made up of administrators, so it's Mr. Bennett, Mr. Bois, and Mr. Hilgendorf, and then the chairperson, in this case it's me, then 2 teacher reps from each building, and then the union president. And we review the program, we guide the program, we pair the mentors and mentees, and we reflect on the efficiency of the program. That's at least been our system. So pairing. So typically we sit down as the committee and we look at certain things. So for example, if we have a new teacher and they might be brand new, we might try to pair them with someone who's also in the same content, right? And they might just need help building curriculum, and it's useful to have someone in the same content. Greenville, since it's a little smaller, it gets a little trickier because if you have, a middle, like 6th grade social studies, there isn't another 6th grade social studies teacher. You can pair them with another social studies teacher. So, but oftentimes we think about things like, do they have professional alignment? So if you have a teacher who's sort of laid back and you have someone who's more driven, we might not pair those people together just because it's just different personalities, and that's important. And then also the experience of the teacher. So sometimes we take someone who we think might be a good mentor, even if they're not in the same department, because you can go back and you can ask about curriculum from your team of math or English or whatever, and then the other piece of building community might just be a better fit. Ultimately, we make suggestions, and then the superintendent makes a decision and asks me to call somebody and offer the mentorship to them. So, sort of a 2-tier process. I don't know, does that satisfy the question? And then, so the results, so like I said, we review the program every year, so at the end of the year, we administer an end-of-the-year survey. We get feedback from the mentors and the mentees. We're working on making that survey a little bit more focused on some feedback that we feel we're missing. But the feedback is overall positive. People seem to value the time they have with the mentors, the experience the mentors have, and the support and the guidance from the program in general. These are just some quotes from people who have been mentored. So the mentor program to me was a support system, the support from the mentors with years of experience. You see the same sort of theme coming up. Someone to turn to, someone who has experience here, and it's been positive. So, and then how do we have this program? So it's a state requirement, so we've had it, but in the last 5 years, it's been funded by a grant, which we will apply for again this year. Is that correct? It runs out this year?
Yes, it is, 2023.
So it runs out this year. It's the mentor teacher internship program. The thing about the grant is that we have to provide mentors, but the grant allows us to do a little bit more, like offer the part-time mentorships, which are useful. The funds from the grant, they offset the costs and things like stipends, additional supply money for teachers, and then professional development opportunities. So the grant's been good. But the hope is that even without the grant, we'll still run it as closely as we do right now, because I think out of the mentor program I've been in, this one has been, it's been sort of the most inclusive and instructional that I've seen. And I've been at a few different schools. So unless anybody has any questions, that's all I got for it. Yes, sir.
So first,
Does someone have a microphone?
I stole it.
One up.
Thanks.
There are two down there.
Thanks, Jim. I'll get one in a minute. Is that on now?
Might want to turn the switch. That's already.
Hold on.
What is those microphones
It's
tonight?
all-
Wait, I think, oh, it's on now. Sorry about that. First, thank you. I think it's a great program. I think it's a great idea. And I'm sure you covered this. I apologize for coming in late. But I did hear you say that I think that it's new teachers, or at least teachers new to the district who are in the program. Is there an opportunity if you have a teacher who has been here for some amount of time but feels like for whatever reason they could benefit from the mentorship program? Because I think mentorship is something that throughout your career never really stops. It just what you need out of it kind of changes. Is there an opportunity for a teacher who's a little more established to participate?
So in the program, we don't have a mechanism for that as it is right now. I know that part of the plan, there's a discussion of, sort of a decreasing engagement, so it's not just the first year that you're here. I don't know if that's something we can do. It's not something that we do, but I mean, there is always a sort of a broader support network. I haven't experienced a teacher who's been teaching for a number of years coming and saying, can someone mentor?
Okay.
Something that we're doing, this year, at least as a district, is giving teachers the opportunity to see each other teach, which is something that we've been pushing in the mentor program. Sort of an open door policy. Someone in the district really does this very well, so even if it's not your mentor, they do classroom management really well, or they do on-demand assessment really well. Go watch and get some feedback or understanding of how that works. But to my knowledge, no mechanism for that.
Okay. It seems great, though. Thanks, Chris.
Other questions?
How much is the grant?
I don't know what.
43,200, I believe.
5 years.
Yes, it was from 2018 to 2023.
And I think that if we look at obviously reducing turnover, that there is a financial impact to it, because when a teacher comes, then that cost, if they were to leave the next year, then there's that learning curve, and they have associated money with it. And we talk about community and everything else, and it's just as important, I think, for teachers to also feel that they're part of a community. So thank you for chairing the committee.
Sure, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
You teach French also?
Say that again, Doug?
No.
Just use your microphone, they can't hear it on.
No, I just play a French speaker on TV.
If you want, I can go into French. All right, I'm going to switch us over to the open forum. So the 30-minute open forum is the time that the board sets aside to hear in-person comments from the public. Comments may also be emailed in advance of the meeting prior to 4 p.m. on the date of the meeting, and state in the email if you would like your correspondence read out loud to Daphne Pearson, District Clerk at pearsond@greenvillecsd.org. This is an opportunity for residents to voice general concerns and compliments, especially about items on the agenda. However, this is not the time to register complaints about specific individuals or about items that should be addressed confidentially through the proper channels. All comments shall be addressed to the district clerk and shall be limited to not more than 5 minutes per board policy 2180. Please note that members of the board do not directly respond to citizens' concerns during the public forum. May not directly respond. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
I have just one more question about the,
Yes. Well, if you could,
well, I mean, what happens if it fails?
what happens in the
If it
sale?
doesn't pass?
The capital vote, if it fails,
Oh, what happens if it fails?
Yeah.
we put it up again in May?
I think that that would be a discussion that if it were, then we have several options. One being that we would put it up for vote again in May.
Okay. So there
Yes.
is a continuation if it doesn't pass the first time?
Correct. One of the things about the timing on that is that then that would put us further behind, especially in that the size of the project may not be appealing enough to some of the construction companies and so forth. So in looking at that, I think that that was one thing where we really looked at the timing. And the other element are the interest rates. So between both things, that was part of the reason for the December timing. Any other questions? All right, then I'm going to move us on. No, wait, did we have any emails? No, okay, I just wanted to check. All right, so now for the action items. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of October 17th, 2022.
Eric and Duncan, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the finance reports for the month ending October 31st, 2022. Motion?
Duncan and Eric, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Duncan? Yeah,
I said aye.
Okay,
I-
okay.
wait.
sorry.
That's
I'm
all.
trying to look both ways.
I need a motion to accept the Committee on Special Education recommendations.
Duncan and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
Eric, need a second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the tax collector's report 2022 through the 2023 time period.
Duncan, Eric, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the real property tax adjustment for 2022-2023.
Eric, need a second? Jay, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the resolution to accept bid from U-Source for commodity electricity.
Dave, need a second? Jim, thank you.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have a couple questions.
Can you just?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Probably, this is gonna be Janet or Mike. First, on the description of this resolution, last paragraph, who is the interim superintendent? Is that referring to one of the other districts, or?
That was if I may. This resolution was on an agenda back in 2017, 16, 17, so Tammy was, that's the one thing I didn't catch.
Okay.
So it should say
Not gonna indict you, Daphne.
No?
Second, Janet, could you describe the advantage to join this? And then I'm wondering if the agreement with the other districts, and they're all local, is that any of that part binding?
So the benefit of it is,
The benefit is, so this way, we can put together a bid of a large amount of electric use. So this way we get a smaller rate.
Okay.
And we did add Ravina Queemans. We always had the 3 schools, and this year we got Ravina Queemans to join in with us, and they're pretty big schools, so hopefully with their electric usage, we'll get a nice rate.
Right. And have we used U-Source before?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is, it talks about, on the next to last paragraph, it talks about the districts being able to accept or reject the proposal. So we pass this resolution, then I'm assuming they're gonna give the 3 or 4 districts their rate, and then each of the
only have-
4 districts get to opt out, or do you opt out as a group? Or can we opt out and go on the market on our own? Not that I think we could get a better rate than this group, but.
I think all 4 have to go in, since it's an agreement for all
Okay,
4.
So it's a lump sum
Yeah.
kind of rate, all right.
But they don't give us time to wait for a board meeting for you guys to approve the bid. They want it, because the rate changes constantly.
Right, so that's addressed in the last paragraph. I'm assuming that Mike is now our superintendent.
Thank you.
So, Duncan just annoying you that. So then Mike is gonna agree to the rate?
Yeah, the 2 of us will talk about it.
And when, will we be notified what that rate is?
Yep.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
And when we're notified, if you could also provide a comparison to, I guess, what the either what we're currently paying, what the anticipated rate would be if we weren't with it, so. Any other discussion? Jay?
What's the term?
It's usually 3 years.
And do you know if it's a fixed rate?
If it's a what?
Is rate fixed for, say, 12 months and then escalates, 12 months and escalates, or
It's supposed to be fixed the whole time.
for the whole 3 years? Okay. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. I need a motion to approve a new textbook for entrepreneurship. Any discussion? It has been available in the district office and it's right over there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pages are sticking together. I need a motion to amend the membership for committees.
Okay, need a second? Dave, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the bid awards in the amount of $227 to Auctions International. And these are for gray elementary school chairs.
Second? Jim, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve surplus items. And these are high school textbooks.
And Eric is a second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so for discussion, I'm going to turn it over to both Duncan McPherson as well as Mike Bennett. We're going to talk about the NYSBA annual meeting. Go ahead,
You want to
Duncan.
go first? Mike? It's up to you.
I'm going to let you go first,
Okay.
Duncan. You're listed first on the agenda.
All right. First, I'll apologize for last month. I was loud. I thought I wasn't, but I had earplugs in, so I guess I was loud. But that was this, the resolutions committee met virtually, and there were 41 resolutions. 29 were adopted. You all have copies, and the public has copies in the agenda of the ones that were adopted. I'm only going to speak to 2 or 3.
Those copies are somewhere in the office because I put them in the drawer and I must not have grabbed them.
Yeah,
However,
but
they
they're on the
linked on
agenda
Word
and they can
docs.
look at them. I thought Daphne changed her mind. She
No,
told,
I-
no
I
big
made
deal,
those
not a
copies. They're-
problem.
Just didn't make them here.
The couple I want to talk about have to do, the first one with the Foundation A formula. That's a sore point and has been. And before I do that, let me just tell you that are adopted stay as part of the program for NYSBA for 5 years, unless they're successful as an organization. and getting the action that we're lobbying for. So some of these have been on the agenda for a while, like the Foundation Aid has been on. This is basically renewing it for a 5-year. We didn't want to just let it drop off. We have promise after promise after promise from state leadership that all school districts will be made whole based on the foundation. And slowly but surely we're getting better, but we're still, I don't know, I would say probably only about 62 to 72% of where we should be. Is that about the right ballpark?
Yeah.
Well, off the top of my head, I can't give you a better figure than that. They have been improving. This year they improved again, and hopefully we're going to see the same in the upcoming budget for next year. But that's what that's all about. Universal pre-K fully funded. Obviously, this year is the first year that we've had on-campus pre-K. I think we have 2 sessions, or 2 sections, if you they're called. We also have pre-K that are under our quote-unquote responsibility, but are held by private sector, like the United Methodist Church, I think, has one. This is an issue that, especially downstate, they're looking for additional support and having the state fully fund that. I'm not sure, I can't speak to how it's funded now, but it isn't funded as the same as regular students, is it?
No, it's grants.
It's
We have to
just a
write
grant, yeah.
yeah.
So the argument is to fully fund it just like we would any student. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about was the fully fund and reimburse school districts for tax exemptions for veterans. And that's what I was over there talking about, okay? That's one that obviously has been near and dear to my heart for a while. Jim worked on it from the veterans' point of view before he got on the board. This was not a resolution that I put up, but it was a resolution from a downstate school district. And basically, it's just to try to make whole, really, our taxpayers. Because right now, even though we've always used the proverbial cup of coffee a day as the idea about what it would cost if tax exemption was approved by our voters as it was. That's spread out, and people who are not veterans but are taxpayers wind up paying that portion of the taxes that would have been paid by veterans. So this would do it something more like the senior citizens program. So there were the 3 I wanted to talk about. The others, a lot of them, the ones that failed, I think 2941. I'm going to do my math real quick, and I hope to come up with 12 is the right answer. But a lot of those were quite honestly, one of them talked about critical race theory and didn't get a lot of support at all. Okay, so there was some political issues that came out of a few school districts that were, I guess militant is probably the best word. Any questions?
Thank you for doing it.
Thank you for doing it.
Oh.
So that was good work that the NISBA group is doing. They also put on an annual conference. And this is the first time I've ever been to a NISBA conference. I found it to be incredibly informational and helpful for our new superintendent. And we had some discussion with Tracy and Duncan about getting some board members to participate next year. I believe the conference will be in Buffalo. But it was attended a couple of great sessions on rural schools, some of the challenges that come along with being in a rural area and maintaining a solid school district in a market that is seeing less and less families moving into rural schools, some of the challenges that come with finding families and being able to have supportive programs. School safety was another hot topic for a couple of the sessions in which they really talk about the need to identify both the hardening of the schools and working with your local municipalities in keeping schools safe. The other piece that we spent a lot of time on is the mental health and social emotional learning that needs to take place. We've seen a vast increase in areas of concern around social emotional learning, and not just our students, our teachers are also struggling, or the adults, with the stresses and the issues that come around with being in education at this point. The last piece that I was going to talk about was, it just escaped me for a moment. Diversity and equity and inclusion, and the difference between critical race theory, which is really more of a college level, advanced college level courses that people are often confusing with the diversity and equity and inclusion process that the state's really talking about, and making sure that we're being inclusive with all our kids in our communities. So it was a great conference. Again, I think next year it would be great to have a couple of board members join me in the conference, and it's bringing a lot back to this group and really kind of move that stuff forward. So.
And in fact, NISBA sent out an email for asking board members who did not attend if you could fill out the survey. It takes 2 minutes in that. So.
You're fast. It took me 4.5.
There you go. With the goal just being information that we would find interesting and help do our jobs as well. So I think that they're looking for suggestions and so forth. So if anyone has any topics, then definitely there is an open field that you can put in the survey. Okay. All right, so with that, then I'm going to move us on to the capital project, and again, turn it over to Mike.
So not a lot new along the lines of the capital project. We have one more informational meeting left for our community. We have been busy, I should say, Sierra's been busy working on getting our newsletters out, working with teachers, working with faculty and staff, administration, putting together a great video that kind of shows some of the highlights of some of the work that we're looking to get done. We'll continue to work with both Matt and Joanne as we move through this process of putting together information. We will be going out to Rotary on Thursday to present to that group. We have printed up some flyers that we'll put out in local businesses to kind of talk about some of the highlights, to really make sure that we're getting information out there that people need to make a decision when it comes time to vote on a capital project. We are coming down to the wire now with the vote coming up on December 6th. We are hopeful that we get a good turnout for the project, and we get the support that we're looking for. So.
And yes, Duncan.
Mike, when you're making a presentation, I think it would be helpful. We had some questions about where's the money coming from and whatever. I think the linkage between the bonds for the last major or the previous major capital project coming or being fully paid off, and the new project, the timing there is how we really keep the ebb and flow of what we would need from taxpayers to do these kinds of things. We try to keep that constant. I think we have a track record as a school district for having done, I know since I've been involved, at least 4 projects where we basically been able to do these major projects, all that field work, all the upgrades we did here, new roofs and everything else, and basically keep a flat line as to money needed directly from the taxpayers, up or down, okay, to fund these things. So I think there's, highlighting that a little bit would be helpful.
I appreciate that feedback, and I think that Chris touched on it just briefly, but I think being a more part of the presentation as bonds move off, our debt service moves off, and being able to kind of fill that void there with
well, and it's kind of planned.
Yeah,
It,
right.
it's done so we don't have these ebbs and flows.
Do we want to take a question?
You want to wait
Leave
till
to the
four?
Capitol?
Sure.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
If you could just use the microphone, sir, or the one right. Oh, okay. Maybe, Rich, could you?
I'll talk loud. How's that?
It's more for the recording. We can hear
Oh,
you.
I'm so sorry. I have no leg, that's the problem. Just a question to the gentleman over here. He mentioned finances. Are we talking the $14 million project? Okay.
Yes.
With prices up and up, I'm concerned about what happens if we don't have a 14 million but a 24 million or a 34 million project. Who pays for the increase?
Great question.
Thank you.
When we put out our bid on December 16th, or December 6th to vote at the 14.5 number, we cannot go above that number. One of the things that we talked about in our program is, in presentation, is we put an escalator in there in regards to the cost of supplies and things like that, that our architects and our bonding group work with, so that we have a good understanding and we can be somewhat futuristic in taking a look at how the cost of supplies, inflation, all those things are going to go up. So we put that into that number. So when we talk about our project, we talk about it from priorities. These are our priorities that we want to be able to get with that number. The idea is also including an alternate scope in that project, so that if we have escalated too high for the numbers that, things that we want to get done, we can do these alternate items as well. So that number, we cannot go any higher than that $14.5 million project.
What happens if we're like in the middle of the project? Gentlemen, sorry, we need another 5 million. Now what?
We can't do it.
Do you take an escalator or an elevator? No, I'm serious. What happens?
We don't do the, we cannot do that work. So what happens is,
Yeah, but
once
it's done
we-
already, halfway, sir.
No, once we put the project out to bid, the contractors are held to that price that they bid the project at. So they cannot go above that number in which they bid their project at.
What does this escalator term that you just referred to, what does that mean?
So what that means is it allows for us, when because we'll start designing the project, if it's a yes vote, designing the project in December. We're hoping to get it into the state education department by June. It usually takes about 6 months for the state education department to approve the plans. Then we have to go through, bid the project, and then start the construction. So that's about 1.5 years to 2 years out from the time that we vote on this project. So what we have to do is, when we give the numbers to the public to vote on, we have to put into our numbers into the cost of equipment and a cost of materials. So we put that escalator, that's 6% escalator, into those numbers, so that, and again, we're running, in the past, we've been 2% to 3%. Currently, the construction's going 4 to 5, so if we're looking out, we're projecting out at potentially 6%. And so, and that's year after year. So what we want to make sure that we're doing is covering what we perceive the cost of the project to be when we put it out there to bid. And the bidders will bid on the project based on that.
Does the contractor have a completion bond? You know what that means? There's insurance that he will, in case he goes bankrupt, or he can't do it, or he leaves the country, okay? So that somebody steps in, which is an insurance.
Yes.
Completion
Yep.
bond. Do we have that?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes.
Well, we don't have it now, but we will have it.
Oh, once it's part of the bid, it'll be part of the bidding process.
That relieves some of my concern.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mike, I've never seen this happen, but to chime in with what the gentleman was, I thought, kind of heading toward is, if inflation gets even worse, so the process goes that December 6th, we get a tremendous number of votes that come out and approve this project. Then we go through the steps that Mike explained earlier during his presentation. And then at some point we would get to the project components going out to bid. And the bids would come before us on our agenda, and then they would get approved. But if every one of them is excessive above what the budget can handle, the budget for this project can handle, they have to be rejected. And they go out to bid, and I've never seen this happen. I've been involved in 2 school districts, so I don't want to see it to happen. But I imagine that worst case scenario, you'd have to, I don't want to speak, I'm going to speak in general terms or some kind of fantasy. We maybe have to pare down the amount of projects that we could do, but I have a difficult time with that because we would have promised the voters that we're going to complete X, Y, and Z, but we've promised X, Y, and Z at a certain budgetary amount. I don't know if that helps you understand or not. But I think that's how the process would go. But a lot of your concerns would be handled at the bidding acceptance process that the board would have to go through.
Let's assume that, I'm sorry, I don't want to monopolize here. Let's assume there really are issues. Would the state possibly come in? Let's assume the crypto. Who would have thought this?
I did.
Thank you.
I mean, it's fake, so.
Thank you, partner. Would the state rescue?
No, they would not.
We have lawyers.
And
They
there
have
are,
lawyers.
and there are other things that the state does help with, such as locking in on the interest rate. So one of the things we talked about a little earlier was that because the amount of time between when it is approved and we actually bond it is significant, there are options to almost provide kind of like an insurance policy by tapping into New York State options. So that is one thing that can help. And the other item is leveraging as much of the project as we can with what is aidable for that. So while they can't come in, there are elements that we are taking advantage of to minimize our risk.
Why was there no step taken forward when we had like historically low interest? Because now we're going to pay about 7.5 to 8 points. Right?
4.
For the 3 years.
No, 4%.
No,
More
it's
or less?
Yeah.
4%, because remember, school bonds are tax-free, I believe. So that, in effect, is basically 8% from a
Right.
financial standpoint
Right.
for that. Now, historically, we've been at 2 to 3% is
Right.
what we've seen on some of our other bonds there. When you say, why didn't we do it before? We have needs, and our needs for the buildings generally exceed what we've been able to. So we have to prioritize the different elements. So whether it's the boiler down at Ellis, time has come. We can't push it off any further. So those are some of the things. And New York State recognizes that by requiring all schools to have a 5-year plan of facilities to ensure that schools are maintaining them and not just ignoring them. Did that help answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
I forgot about the 4 and 8%. You're right.
And if I may chime in on something that Dave had mentioned in response to you, the time frame we're looking, that's why we're looking for December. If we get approved in December to move forward instead of waiting for another revote in May, the reality is sometimes the amount of work that goes out to the contractors for it to have a delay of 5 or 6 months to go out, even though it's a year and a half ahead. Sometimes those contractors fill up their schedules. So in order to have those contractors take on additional work, sometimes they're already full. They'll give inflated numbers, and that's the reality. So that's why we want to try to go early, to try to get the contracts early, so that it would be, say, more fair. Because the reality is, if they're just trying to get it done, they'll throw higher numbers at it because they don't really need it.
In spite of a recession. Thank you, sir.
And Mike, if you could provide us with an update on the buildings ground field work, please.
He's going to touch upon the student BOE representative update in his project.
Did you want to talk about the student BOE representative update?
Whether it's just on the ballot.
Yes, basically it's just on the ballot.
Nobody
Yep.
knows.
Oh, so also on the ballot for our December 6th vote is a proposition to have a student board of education representative be part of this group. And what this will be, we'll go through a process at the high school to take in applications for students who would be likely to be a part of this process in regards to they don't have the opportunity to have voting rights, they are not allowed into executive session, but it allows to give student voice to the Board of Education. State law allows for a student board member to join a Board of Education, and it has to be voted on every 2 years. The public has to approve of it, so on December 6th, we will ask the community to support that as well, and that way we can go through the process at the high school to have potentially a student joining the Board of Education. No voting rights, no executive session rights, but an opportunity to give a voice to the students and for the board. I missed the small print, sorry.
It's tiny, so I'll make it bigger next time.
Okay, so for the, now if we could move on to the fieldwork update.
Yeah, so as you know, we've begun some additional work on the baseball fields and softball fields to address some of the drainage issues that we have. That work started in early October, late September, early October, and we are at the point now where we're just about done with the boys' baseball field, putting in the drainage outside of the right field line along the back of the diamond where the clay goes into the outfield, and as well as out towards the warning track. Gallo has been in doing that work now, like I said, since the end of September, early October. And now we're in the process of taking a look at moving on over to the softball fields. There's some concern around the timing, and somebody happened to whisper in my ear that we may get snow on Tuesday night and Wednesday. So we have a meeting with those folks tomorrow to talk about that process and where we're going to be there. In regards to the tennis courts, we had a chance to meet with Shaker Flats last week and have some concern around the southern part of the tennis courts, around where the poles for the fence come down in. There is one hole there now, and there's some concern around a couple of other spots. They came out on Tuesday or Wednesday of last week and dug out around 2 of those spots that we had concerns around to take a look at it. They think that there is some issue with compaction around those poles, so they dug them out. They will pour the concrete into them. I believe, Rich, they're coming in tomorrow. They're doing some other work on site. Now this is work that is no cost to us right now. They are working on some of the issues between both Shaker Flats and ASCO fencing. What we'll do is we'll take a look at this again in the springtime to see what the other spots are doing, if they're getting worse. And if so, what we'll do is Shaker Flats has indicated to us that this is an issue based on some workmanship issues, that they will come back and work with AFCO Fence to repair those areas that need tending to. The other issue that we're still, we'll learn a little bit more later in regards to the drainage that's underneath the tennis courts currently, and we have a crack that runs pretty much east-west through one portion of the tennis courts, and then midway through moves to the southern part of the tennis courts. So we'll taking a look at that as what's causing that crack currently, and getting some opinions on next steps around that.
Mike, on the baseball field, is any of that work on the actual playing field?
Yes.
Is it going to be ready for spring?
Yes. One of the things that part of that project and scope is to put sod on those spots that the beginning of the outfield grass and up against the warning track, and then seed down the right field line that's outside of the playing field. Yep.
And what's the concern with not starting on the same concerns for the softball field?
Softball field, we've got
Timing?
some concerns just with timing of that now, getting into the nasty weather. What we don't want them to do is begin that project and then not be ready for it to be playable in the springtime. We don't want to lose a season because they've started a project and it's unsafe and they were unable to complete it. So we're meeting with Gallo tomorrow to discuss what is the best way to attack that.
Okay, because I was wondering what the options would be to wait until after the softball season, which was
correct.
Pushing it way out there.
It is, but again, I think that that softball field has not been as problematic as the baseball field. I mean, it's still issues, it's still wet, but I don't want to lose a season for our girls on that field if we don't have to.
Thank you.
Chair, only one final question, sorry. Is there any political request, not to say pressure, to have children from the immigrants or asylum seekers or illegals to be up here, and that, are we prepared for that? Or has there been any request yet to take children?
There has been zero requests that I'm aware of made to the board or to the district in regards to any immigrant population coming into Greenville Central School District.
In case that happens, would we be prepared?
We would.
Especially with the language?
We would have to be prepared. There are a number of E&L programs that we would have to take a look at, and we know that it's happening in other school communities around the capital region, and yes, we would have to be prepared and ready for them.
Tough. Thank you. Sorry that I asked so many questions.
No.
That's why
Come
we have
again.
these meetings. Thank you.
Before I get a new leg. Excessive sports on your tennis courts. Really? Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Do any board members have any topics for the future? Go ahead, Jay.
One item that I would like to see discussed, and I think it would be good to have at a board meeting. It could also be good for just a community forum, informational session. And that is with regards to vaping. If I remember correctly, a few years before the pandemic, I think when vaping really started becoming a thing, there was a meeting here at school to provide information. I remember the school nurse talking about the health effects and concerns, and there was a lot of information given about what it is, what to look for, etc. I know that it's a continuing issue in the schools, and I think it would be good. One, I'd like to hear, as a board member, what is happening, what's being done to try to address it. I think it would also be useful, though, to have another informational session so that the community is aware of what's happening and just has the information they need to, I guess, respond to it.
Agreed, 100%. Yep. look to get something like that, whether it's another community forum or part of the board presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, I think just one last thing. I mean, as part of the discussion, on the one hand, I don't think we need great detail about what's happening in the school. You know, it's not really the point. On the other hand, I think it's important to be open about it as being an issue in the school that needs to be addressed. So whether it's the presentation of the board or discussion with the community, I would just ask that it, you know, come from that perspective. Thank you.
Tracy, I have two things. Has to be about 4 years ago now, maybe 5, when Tammy had negotiated a pilot with, I don't know the proper name, but let's say this Shepherd's Farm, solar farm. She negotiated a lump sum amount that was supposed to be, according to the agreement that I understood, was supposed to be dedicated to technology. I don't know how much of that money has been expended, if it has been expended, but if the board could get an itemized list of where that money is, or if it has not been spent. The other part of my question is why not, if it's been that long. And then how do we handle that? Is that truly a gift, or is the money been folded into a fund that's in the district? The other thing is that we're all aware that the district, through channels, I guess, has been gifted a decent amount of money for our foreign language department by a former foreign language teacher. And I probably understand that that's in the elementary process of getting started as far as distributing some of that. I'm wondering how that process works, and then if it's a step thing, because it's a decent amount of money, and I can't imagine that large of a sum going to one item. So are they going to be considered gifts for each item that comes out of that fund? Where is the fund? And then how will we be made aware of each of those, let's call them distributions? And we could discuss that.
I will say we have a meeting at 11:15 tomorrow with the Greenville Education Foundation and the World Language Department. So to discuss that money, because it was built or left for them in particular. So we'll talk about what they can do, the do's and the don'ts, because from what I understand, it was pretty specific in how they can spend that money. So we'll learn a bit more tomorrow.
And I think one of the things was that there was the donation that was made, that amount in the fund was used to then generate an annual amount that could be spent. So like the principal can't be touched.
Oh, really?
That was my understanding, but again, I could be incorrect. It's what comes off of it, and then it has to be used for foreign language, and then there are specifics around it. But yes, we could absolutely.
Yeah, you want to check that out, because the amount is not that great, so it wouldn't generate that kind of.
It'll generate 2,000 every year, 2,500 a year.
At what rate?
Well, it may generate more now.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it, basically, I'm just familiar with having served on the foundation. It won't generate it in the sense that if it's tied into the stock market and the stock market doesn't perform. But at the same time, I think that there was confidence, whether it's conservative allocation, that it would generate, say, up to $2,000 annually.
Okay. When you have that discussion, Mike, would you, tomorrow, please clarify that, whether or not it's a generating fund that's going to be distributed, or what the actual desires of the benefactor were. And Jen, did you have anything about process?
I'm not included in.
Okay, so,
Because it's through the Greenville Education Foundation, we haven't been really included in
so we're gonna,
any of
a
this.
teacher
really.
wanted to use some of those funds, they're gonna go directly through them, but don't they have to fund it, send you a check?
Correct.
Right, and then you distribute it, right?
Yes, according to how they are distributed. They tell, Greenville Educational Foundation tells us how much goes to where. And then we do the purchase order to purchase it or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
2 quick questions. The foundation check, was that, I think Dave said, is that a gift that is that considered a gift that we have to vote on? Or does it not go through the board?
You don't vote on it, it's just, we let you know of the donation.
Okay.
So it's,
We've always voted on another donation.
We accept the donation,
accept the
that
donation.
is, but
Right, yeah, we
That's
can't
what
vote on
I
the
meant,
amount.
we have to vote to accept the gift.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And quick question for you, Dave. Were you asking for a discussion at a future meeting to talk about what's going on with this, what the gift was, or are you happy with the information you got tonight and don't want a discussion in another meeting?
No, actually, I'm thinking that, I don't know if it's gonna happen again. Maybe you're gonna leave some money to us. So I'm thinking maybe we need to have a thought process about what is the process going to be to make sure things are clear. And sometimes clarity comes from writing.
So like a protocol or process? for-
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, or at least a discussion on how we want to handle these kind of things.
and I think that that's very valid.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, though, the money wasn't given to Greenville Central School
Right.
District. It was given to the Greenville
Education
Education Foundation,
Foundation.
which is separate from us. So we have little control over what their process is. They work with us in regards to letting us know how they're going to allow teachers to apply for different grants through the use of that money. But that's a whole separate organization, from what I'm understanding, than this Board of Education. So I think we're limited in how much say we get in this, especially in a situation like this where it is gifted for a specific purpose. And that's what the meeting is tomorrow about, working with the Foreign Language Department and the Greenville Education Foundation to go over those parameters. And because I'm not part of that foundation, I'm not sure what those parameters are, but I can get some questions answered hopefully for you.
Yeah.
From Fred.
In my mind, it's getting even a little stickier because they are our employees. And if they request to purchase an item that's gonna go on our grounds, then there's ownership questions.
Why don't we let them work it out?
Right.
And then we'll understand it and we'll reject the gift if we have to. But I don't believe that's gonna be an issue.
I mean, just in the past, every year we have accepted a donation from them with specifics that the board approves, in that sense. Does that help?
It does. My concerns really are centered on making sure that the benefactor's wishes are honored, and that we have a clear understanding of what those wishes were, and that the money is used in a timely manner.
And then, one thing also, excuse me, we need to be careful with the benefactor, and then they're going to utilize something, put something in place. If it's going to cost money due to maintenance, if it's, that we incur, or if that's totally inclusive. If it's a one-time fee and it never has to have additional cost to maintain, that's a different thing. That if they're going to put something in place that's going to have, say, a 10% per year in order to maintain, then that's something I think we should be aware of.
And that makes sense. I think one of the things with this particular grant, they were talking about field trips. So, but let's say related to the solar pilots that you would ask for clarification, that has to be earmarked for STEM-related projects. So I don't know, if there were something, I'm making it up, let's say 3D printers, you know, the bulk of the cost is in the cartridge refills, then that needs to be factored in. So yes, these are all valid points, and I think worth a follow-up discussion. So we'll add it at a future time. Anything else that we want to add? All right, then I'm going to move us then to open forum. I think we kind of had an closing open forum, but if there's anyone else, please note that if there's anyone else that would like to speak, we do have an opportunity. And please note that the same rules apply as stated during the first open forum. So is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay, then I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to meet with the district attorney to obtain legal advice. Is he here? Okay. Can I have a motion?
Jay?
I think I see him walking in. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
He is adjourned.